There are crazy amounts of exceptionally powerful and unreasonably strong units in the game right now that most people just have no idea how to handle. And today I am going to teach you how to handle the scariest, most nightmarish units in the game with the weakest, easiest units in the game. And it's going to take your skill level of this game up to the next freaking level. So let's just jump right on into it. Why the heck are we doing this video? Well, when you're faced with a unit that is terrifyingly powerful, has unreasonable amounts of shooting or melee, just can't be killed, there are ways to handle it, and we don't need to be crying about it. We need to solve the freaking problem. So that's what we are going to do today. There's lots of Death Star units in the game, terrible matchups, but many times these challenges are not insurmountable, even though they seem so. So we're going to give you all of the necessary strategies in order to ruin your opponent's plans, and most importantly, I'm going to teach you how to use your 40-point unit of Gretchen to defeat the 360-point unit of Wardens. So let's jump into it. Death Star General. What do I mean when I say Death Star? Death Stars are going to be the style of units that are just a crazy amount of points in one unit that just barrels down the battlefield, and there's nothing your opponent can do to stop it. So this is a lot of armies are built with a Death Star. Not every, but it is a fairly common way of building the army, being like, hey, here's a unit, you can't deal with it, so it's going to do whatever it wants to do, and it's going to score me tons of points, and it's going to kill everything in your army. However, this is false. There's always a way to deal with them. There's 4 of them, actually, that I've got mapped up in this video, and I'm going to use TTS to kind of show you guys how to deal with this. So first off, do not allow them to get to where they want to go. Most of the time, this works brilliantly. There are a few examples in the game where it doesn't work, but that's okay, because then we would just have to deal with it with one of the other ways of doing it. You could always try to push through and murder them. This can be challenging, and I'm going to detail how challenging in just a moment. You could ignore them and kill everything else. This is generally my personal favorite way to handle these Death Star armies. You just ignore the one unit that is a doomsday device. And then fourth, you could just neuter them with trash. So we're going to talk about all 4 of these strategies. If you like this content, hit the like, share, subscribe with your friends, and you should also jump into the members-only Discord where you can be talking high-level tactics with all of us every single freaking day, and you can join our exclusive TTS tournaments where we play Warhammer 40,000 online against each other in order to get way, way better than all of the competition. So first off, the first way to handle Death Star units, do not let them move. So this is the jail technique, and if you have ever been jailed, you're going to know what I'm talking about. Generally, it is super, super useful for vehicles, to like jail vehicles, whether it's a Baneblade or whatever. It can be pretty hard to jail infantry, and it can also be very hard to do against flyers, but not always. This is just a picture I found of the Nightbringer. I thought it was a sick-ass painting job, and it looks like it was done by Shiro Senpai. Clearly not my model, but it's just sick, so I decided to put it in there for your viewing pleasure. So let me show you. I'm going to go back to the TTS, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by jail. There's a lot of different ways that we can do that, but maybe it's going to be more effective if I show you exactly what I mean to stop these guys from moving. So let's just go to this screen. Cool. All right, so what I've done here is I've set up a unit of 5 Alaris Custodian Terminators. These guys are terrifying. They hit extremely hard. They are very, very powerful. They're pretty darn slow, but they're extremely durable, and there's a lot of armies, Orcs being one of them, that just really struggles to deal with units like this. So how the heck would Orcs deal with it? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 40-point unit of Gretchen, and I'm just going to jail them. So the Alaris Custodians are stuck behind this piece of terrain, and they really want to get into the fight so that they can go, kill lots of other things. But the problem being is when we put a little circle around each one of these Gretchen, hopefully you can see this little purple circle on your screen. It's easy to see on mine, but sometimes it can get lost in translation. Maybe I zoom in a little bit. Now, the problem is that these Custodians, who only have a 5-inch move, cannot move within an inch of these Gretchen. So he can't stand here because this is about as far as he can get. So one of them can see out this direction, but the rest really can't move. They can't move through the wall because they can't move through models, and even if they could, it would take them within engagement range if you took this back rank like this, see? So they actually can't even move through the Gretchen. So their only option is to more or less stay put, or they can back up. They could also try to sneak outside this corner, but in this scenario, I would be okay with them sneaking out this corner. And once again, the worst thing that's going to happen is they'll get to shoot something, and then they're going to charge a 40-point unit of Gretchen. So this is one example of how to handle it. And you could put basically any unit. You could put a Nightbringer here. You could put a Wraithknight here. You could put more or less. Well, Wraithknight might be hard because he can move through models that have 4 inches or less. But you could put almost any unit here, and you can do the exact same thing. So if it's a Baneblade, if it's a tank commander, whatever, you can just jail them in a position where they're more or less useless because there's no way that they can move anywhere. And it is an amazing way to deal with Death Star units. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. And I am going to PowerPoint view. Here we go. All right. And let's talk about number 2. So this is the push through strategy. Now, I don't really recommend this because it can be not for the faint of heart. And it is definitely dependent upon what style of Death Star units your opponent has. But let's take, for an example, the Silent King, okay? A lot of these Death Star units they're made specifically to not be killable. And the Silent King, let me just read you these profiles. He is T10, he has 16 wounds, and each one of his Miniers have 5 wounds. And the reason why that's really important is because if you deal 4 wounds to a Minier, let's say you're shooting it with a Doomsday Arc, or you're shooting it with a las cannon, and you deal 4 damage to the Minier, it's going to take another las cannon to kill the next Minier before it can go over to the second Minier, and then you're still going to have to get through that Minier before you can get to the Silent King. So he's 16 wounds, so he's a total 26 wounds, but it actually tends to be a lot more than that because it forces you to like split the damage of multiple damage attacks quite a bit, which can be extremely darn frustrating. Then he has a 2-up armor save with a 4-up invulnerable save, and we all know how spiky 4-up invulnerable saves can be. Then he has a 6-up Feel No Pain, or a 5-up Feel No Pain against Mortals and Psychic if there's a Canoptic Spider nearby, which most of the time when you bring, I won't say most of the time, but a lot of times when you bring the Silent King, your Necron player is also going to bring that Spider to give him that 6-up Feel No Pain, which makes a world of difference. And the 5-up against Mortals and Psychics. Then he heals D3 wounds every single turn. And remember, if he's at full wounds of 16, then he will regenerate a Minier. And it's 2d3 wounds if he has a Reanimator nearby, which is not unheard of as well. And then -1 damage if he's in Star Shatter. So this is an absolutely abysmal unit to try to push through. So if you do math, and this is actually going to be on the low end of damage necessary, just because you have to change the way the math does, since the 2 Miniers are technically individual units, or individual models, not units, the same unit. So the rough math will say approximately 41 las cannons are going to be required to kill the Silent King in one go. I don't know any army that has 41 las cannons that are going to be able to shoot into the Silent King. Basically, the point I'm illustrating is don't try to kill this dude unless you are 100% positive to do it, because chances are the damage is going to be wasted because he's going to be healing it up, and then he's going to have the rest of his army there just to mash into you. To give you an example of just how tough this guy is to kill, if Angron, which is one of the killiest things in the game, goes into this dude, he's going to cause anywhere between 9 and 19 damage based off of buffs. Now, is it possible for Angron to spike high? Totally. So I'm not saying that it has to be 9 to 19 damage. He can kill him in one go, but it requires luck. So it can be very challenging to push through these models. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that as the go-to strategy unless you just have one of those units that can kill literally anything. Then we have the ignore and kill everything else strategy. This is my personal favorite strategy. So for example, if you've got this big, nasty Deathwing Knights unit, or the Silent King, Satan, Wraithknight, whatever, chances are that it is expensive and it takes a lot of resources from your opponent's armies to include it. Once you kill all of the trash, your opponent is going to be forced into a game where they either go for broke to try to table you, or they're going to end up doing cleanse with the Nightbringer or the Avatar Arcane, and that is just absolutely hilarious. Now, lastly, you have the Neuter with trash. Now, this is exactly how I'm going to teach you how to kill Wardens with your Gretchen. And I did this in a game last night, and it was freaking hilarious. Well, to be fair, I did this against Custodian Guard, not Wardens, but it's the same story, right? It's absolutely hilarious. I always neuter these super powerful death bricks with my trash units. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to take a big, scary threat, and you're going to neuter all their hitting power. And you can do this in a bunch of different ways. One, you can do it with heroic interventions. You can do it with advances. You can just positionally force the big things to go into little things, all sorts of things. So let me go to the TTS view so that I can show you exactly how I'm going to always beat my Wardens with my Gretchen. Live action here. Nice, we're on the TTS screen. So I've kind of set this up for you right here. I have a big unit of knobs, and they're all super excited because they're ready to go crump nerds. But unfortunately, it is the Custody's turn, and the Custodian player has these bikes. And right here, he has a 6-inch charge that he needs to make to go kill the knobs. Now, if he makes this charge with these bikes, it's a shield captain led by some, other bikes. He straight up is going to murder this entire unit because there's no way I could survive even with -1 to wound, all these things. So let's say he makes the charge and he rolls a, who knows? Let's say he rolls a, let's say he gets the 6. So he can't quite base, but he does end up within engagement range. So he is in engagement range. He is going to be able to hit. Now, typically what's going to happen is these guys are going to move their 6 inches. Boop, boop. 6 inches. And 6 inches. And then what you expect to see is when it's their turn to fight, they're going to pile on in. They're going to pile in and base the one guy right here. This guy's going to move forward. And actually, he might get stuck over here because he can't quite get base to base with the guy. But even still, he's going to have 17 attacks here. And that's going to be more than enough to kill all the knobs, especially when they're going to be exploding on 5s, etc. However, what I'm going to recommend you do to stop this nonsense, we're just going to back them up 3 inches because they made that 6-inch charge. He's just going to stay right here. I have these Gretchen positioned in such a way that as soon as this charge is made, I'm going to spend 1 CP on the Heroic Intervention Stratagem, and I'm going to charge these Gretchen in. So let me go ahead and charge these Gretchen in. Say they rolled a, oh, I don't know, a 7, a 6, whatever. Boom. 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 And the rest doesn't really matter where they go. Let's say they do it like this. Well, now my opponent is actually kind of screwed, because the rules of pile-ins say that your opponent must pile into the closest enemy unit, and if they can base them, they must base them. So now this bike here is going to have to do a pivot, and he's going to have to try to base this Gretchen. Let's just say that it's right there. So now he actually will not get base to base with the captain, meaning now the captain is the only model that's going to get to hit the knobs at all. The other 3 bikes, which is 225 points, are going to have to waste all their attacks killing Gretchen, which is absolutely hilarious. Then in the clapback, the freaking, let's say this guy still kills like, I don't know, 3 knobs or something. Now these knobs all pile in, and they will all get to dedicate their attacks into the bikes and murder the face off of the bikes. And that is how I use my trash to annihilate Death Star units. So now this 400-point unit just got obliterated because a 40-point unit heroic intervened. Just another example. Let's say we have this big unit of Wardens or Custodian Guard or whatever on this objective, and I have no units left that can kill them. Well, I don't really need to kill them. All I need to do is roll a little advance roll, put my Gretchen on this objective. Let's just say we do like that. And then I get to wave at my opponent and giggle because my opponent doesn't score primary, because I out-OC him with my 40-point unit of Gretchen, and his 300 whatever point unit of Custodian Guard and Wardens is effectively wasted, scoring no primary. Now, sure, he's going to kill my Gretchen in my turn, but what do I care? It was a 40-point unit that he's going to have to waste an extremely expensive unit to kill. So I use Gretchen to defeat Custodes and much more powerful solo models in the game constantly, and it's always hilarious, and I always love doing it. So let's go ahead and close this bad boy out. Basically, there it is. You've got 4 ways to do it. You can not allow your opponent to go where they want to go just by jailing like we showed and described. You can push through and murder them, which is possible, but it can be very, very hard. Like I just had 10 knobs and a war boss with unbridled carnage, so critting on 5s, kill 1 warden in the fight phase. So pushing through these things can be very, very challenging sometimes. You can ignore the Death Star and just kill everything else, which is my personal favorite strategy. And then you can neuter them with trash, which is also my personal favorite. So maybe I have 2 favorite strategies here. I like neutering with trash and ignoring the Death Stars and killing everything else. So take this information, go smash your opponents, annoy them, be like the squirrel, go forth and be awesome. And until next time, crump on. Bye-bye.